You were not born to remain the same. You were born to grow, to transform, to shed old skins and become someone stronger, wiser and calmer. But for most people, life becomes a quiet repetition. They carry the same habits, the same fears, the same wounds from year to year, wondering why they never feel free. This is where the Stoics speak across time, directly into your life. They whisper a truth that is as uncomfortable as it is liberating. If you want to live fully, you must first kill the version of yourself that is enslaved to impulses, fears, and the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote to himself in his meditations, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." The old self, the one that hesitates, that clings to comfort, that drowns in self-pity, is already half dead. To truly live, you must let it go. Destroying the old you is not about violence or self-hatred. It is about a quiet but firm revolution inside your own mind. It is about seeing that the chains holding you down are not made of iron, but of thoughts, beliefs and habits you can change. And rebuilding yourself alone does not mean becoming isolated from the world. It means learning that you can stand without leaning. It means understanding that your inner fortress is built by your own hands, and no storm, no person, no twist of fate can knock it down once it is strong. The Stoics, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, all lived in times of uncertainty, injustice, and loss. They were not strangers to pain, but they knew that every hardship was a forge for the soul, and they taught that if you have the courage to face your own weaknesses, you can become unshakable. This journey will not be easy. The old self will resist. It will try to seduce you back into the familiar comfort of mediocrity. It will whisper, "Change tomorrow. Stay as you are. You're not ready." But the truth is, there is no perfect moment to start. The perfect moment is now, and the tools you need are already within you. In this video, Stoic Diary will guide you through 7 timeless principles drawn from Stoic philosophy that will help you dismantle the old self and lay the foundations for a stronger, freer, and wiser you. These are not just abstract ideas. They are strategies that you can put into action today, strategies that will require courage but will reward you with an unshakable mind. Before we begin, I want you to imagine something. Picture the version of yourself you know you could be. The one who wakes up with discipline, speaks with clarity, acts with purpose, and walks through life without fear. Now imagine standing face to face with that person. How different would your life be if you lived as them every day? The only thing between you and that life is the courage to let go of what no longer serves you. So we begin. This is the art of transformation, the Stoic way. And it starts with destruction, the destruction of illusions, of weakness, of dependency on the things you cannot control. From that destruction comes creation, the creation of a mind that belongs to you, not to the world. Over the next minutes, we will go principle by principle, from the last to the first, each one building on the other. By the end, you will have a blueprint to face life with the calm of a mountain, the strength of iron, and the clarity of a philosopher. And remember, this is not just a philosophy to read, it is a way to live, a way to reclaim your life piece by piece until you stand as the architect of your own existence. Principle 7. Accept the harsh reality without complaint. The old self clings to resistance. It demands that life be easier, that people be kinder, that fate bend to its will. This constant silent negotiation with the universe is the root of frustration and weakness. The Stoic draws a sharp line between what is within control and what is not. The weather, the economy, the behavior of others, the turning of fortune, none of these answer to you. What does answer to you is your mind, your choices, your response. This is not resignation, it is the active stance of a strategist who refuses to waste energy fighting what cannot be moved. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Acceptance, in the Stoic sense, is transformation through reality, not in spite of it. Acceptance is the foundation of self-reconstruction because it removes illusions. When you stop wishing for a different past or waiting for perfect conditions, you face the truth as it is. That truth is often uncomfortable because it dissolves excuses. You can no longer hide behind bad luck or unfair circumstances. You must take full ownership of your next move. This is why the old self resists clarity. It thrives on complaint, on stories that delay action. But once you accept reality, the conversation shifts from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "Given that this is happening, what will I do next?" The Stoics practice this daily, through morning reflection to prepare for the day's frictions, through negative visualization to deepen gratitude, and through control audits to focus effort only where it matters. Each practice sharpens the mind toward action instead of resentment. In solitude, this discipline deepens. Without the noise of validation or distraction, you are forced to face the unvarnished facts of your life. You learn to coach yourself instead of console yourself, to find peace in truth rather than fantasy. This is the ground where the old self dies and the new one is forged. History gives us examples like Cato the Younger, who could not save the Roman Republic from decline but refused to surrender his principles. His acceptance of what he could not change gave him a moral authority no defeat could strip away. When you master acceptance, bad luck dissolves as a concept. Events become raw material. Some clay is wet, some brittle, some jagged, but the artist works with what is given. The old self waits for perfect marble. The new self sculpts beauty from the stone at hand. Principle 6. Master the art of voluntary discomfort. The old self seeks comfort like a moth seeks light, blindly, compulsively, and often to its own destruction. It hides in soft habits, familiar pleasures, and the smallest possible challenges. It survives, but it never grows. The Stoics saw comfort as a slow poison, eroding resilience and dulling ambition. Epictetus reminded his students, "It is difficulties that show what men are." Voluntary discomfort is not suffering for its own sake. It is a deliberate exposure to challenge so that when life's real storms arrive, they do not knock you down. It is training for the soul, a military drill for the mind. The old self builds walls of comfort, but the new self tears them down one act at a time. This can be physical, cold showers, fasting, waking early without the snooze button; emotional, speaking hard truths, admitting mistakes, asking for forgiveness; social, declining invitations that drain you, detaching from gossip, standing alone in your values; or intellectual, reading difficult works, learning skills that test your patience, debating ideas without defensiveness. Each chosen discomfort breaks fear's hold. If you have already faced hunger, solitude, rejection, and fatigue, fear loses its power because you have proved you can endure. Rebuilding yourself alone is the perfect forge for this practice. Without the noise of distraction, you cannot hide from your weaknesses. You must face them. Solitude allows you to meet discomfort without escape, to train without the crutch of validation. Historical Stoics like Musonius Rufus insisted that comfort breeds collapse, while hardship breeds strength. Voluntary discomfort dismantles the old you by replacing dependence on ease with the strength to thrive anywhere. When you can meet difficulty with calm eyes, you are no longer fragile, you are free. Principle 5. Detach your identity from the opinions of others. The old self is a puppet, its strings pulled by approval, validation, and the fear of judgment. Every choice runs through the filter of What will they think of me? And because of this, it is never free. The Stoics saw this as one of life's greatest traps, living by the shifting desires and judgments of others. Epictetus warned, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This is not a call to seek disrespect, but a reminder that growth often looks strange to those still trapped in mediocrity. When you live for the opinions of others, you hand over the keys to your own mind. You stop acting according to principle and start curating an image to please an audience that can never be fully satisfied. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." The new self lives by inner governance. Your own reasoned and virtuous nature becomes your compass. If an action aligns with your principles, you do it whether it wins applause or invites criticism. If it violates them, you refuse, even under pressure. This is the discipline of listening without being enslaved. Solitude is the proving ground for detachment. Alone, there is no audience to please, no chorus to approve or condemn. You hear your own voice more clearly. You stop performing and start directing your life. Detachment will cost you. Some relationships will fade, and some will misinterpret your silence as arrogance. But as Socrates showed when he chose death over betraying his mission, true freedom comes when you stand by your principles, even alone. Once your self-worth is no longer tied to praise or blame, you are unshakable. Praise no longer intoxicates you, and criticism no longer wounds you. The old self needed constant reassurance. The new self knows who it is, and that is enough. Principle 4. Conquer your desires before they conquer you. The old self is a servant, though it refuses to admit it. It serves every impulse, every craving, every shiny distraction that promises quick pleasure or relief. It confuses desire with necessity. If it wants something, it assumes it must have it. The Stoics saw this as one of the most dangerous forms of slavery, not to another person, but to your own appetites. Seneca put it bluntly, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." And the new self, the one you are rebuilding, must rule over desire as a wise king rules over his people, with discipline, fairness, and the courage to say no. Unchecked desire is never satisfied. Like drinking salt water, the more you indulge it, the thirstier you become. When your happiness depends on getting what you want, you live in permanent unrest, always chasing, never arriving. This is not about rejecting all pleasure. The Stoics enjoyed good food, beauty, and friendship, but they refused to be dependent on them. A Stoic filters desire through two questions. Does this help me live with virtue, reason, and strength? And will I still be at peace if I don't get it? If the answer to the second is no, you are already enslaved. Conquering desire means shifting from "I'll be happy when" to "I am content now, and anything more is a gift, not a need." Solitude is the perfect training ground for this mastery, because without the audience of comparison, many cravings lose their grip. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor, practiced simplicity, plain clothing, modest meals, and a soldier's bed during campaigns, because he knew unchecked desire weakens the will. Practical exercises like delaying non-essential purchases, living for a few days with the bare minimum, or replacing each craving with gratitude for what you already have help dismantle the old self. When you can look at something you want, smile, and walk away without inner conflict, you have won a victory greater than any conquest of land or title. Principle 3. Train your mind to see obstacles as teachers. The old self views obstacles as enemies, unwanted interruptions to a life it believes should flow smoothly if things were going right. It thrives only in perfect conditions, like a plant kept indoors, never tested by wind or weather. The moment it's placed outside, it wilts. Every challenge feels like a personal attack. Why is this happening to me? But the Stoic knows better. Life is made of obstacles, and each one is a lesson in disguise. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not just inspiration, it's a way of seeing the world that dissolves fear and resentment at their root. The Stoic doesn't just tolerate obstacles, they turn them into fuel. Pain is not denied, but it is examined for its value. A betrayal becomes training in resilience and discernment. A financial setback becomes training in resourcefulness. Illness becomes training in patience and perspective. When you begin to see challenges as deliberate drills assigned by life itself, their sting lessens. You stop resisting reality and start asking, what is this here to teach me? Practical habits, like keeping an obstacle journal, rehearsing adversity in calm moments, delaying judgment before labeling events bad, and imagining each challenge as a test from a wise teacher, train the mind to respond with reason instead of panic. In solitude, this principle becomes even more powerful. Without others to lean on, you must face obstacles directly, building internal strength instead of relying on external rescue. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled, could have seen his life as nothing but barriers. Instead, he treated each limitation as training for mastery over his inner world. The old self believes obstacles block progress. The new self understands obstacles are progress. And here lies the paradox. The more you accept and use them, the fewer of them feel like barriers. They become part of the path, not blocks upon it. Principle 2. Discipline your emotions before they discipline you. The old self is ruled by emotion, tossed from one mood to the next like a ship without a captain. Anger decides what it says, fear decides what it does, and desire decides what it chases. It is productive one moment and paralyzed the next, because stability is impossible when every feeling holds the reins. The new self must take command. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. The Stoics were not stone figures without feeling. They experienced joy, love, grief, and loss, but refused to let those emotions govern their actions. As Epictetus taught, it is not events themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we attach to them. Remove the story, and the event loses its power to wound. Emotional discipline begins with awareness. The old self reacts instantly. The new self creates space between trigger and response, and in that space lies freedom. The Stoics trained themselves to pause, reflect, and act with reason rather than impulse, reviewing the day's mistakes without shame, turning them into lessons for tomorrow. In solitude, this training deepens. Without distractions or someone else to blame, you see how much of your emotional life is self-created. The goal is not numbness, but steadiness. To stand calm in the storm, to act with clarity while others are consumed by panic or rage. Seneca called anger a kind of temporary madness, but the same can be said for any emotion that blinds judgment. This discipline is built in small moments, softening your tone when irritated, resisting the urge to send an angry message, noticing when anxiety creates imagined disasters. Over time, you learn to question the first wave of emotion instead of obeying it. Insults become background noise, setbacks become challenges to solve, and grief becomes something you can bear without collapse. In solitude, you practice without applause or recognition. You master your emotions for your own strength. When you reach this point, feelings no longer control you. You can care deeply without losing your center, feel grief without despair, and love without attachment to outcome. The Stoics would call such a person truly free, because once you command yourself from within, nothing outside can master you. Principle 1. Take absolute responsibility for your life. The destruction of the old self begins and ends here. Without this principle, all others are weakened. The old self survives because it constantly shifts responsibility outward. It blames bad luck, difficult people, poor circumstances, or an unfair world. It hides behind the narrative that life has done something to it, and that change will only come when life becomes easier. This mindset is the most subtle and dangerous form of self-sabotage because it feels justified. After all, life can indeed be cruel, people can indeed be unjust, and luck can indeed run dry. But the Stoics understood a truth that shatters this illusion. While we cannot control everything that happens to us, we are always responsible for how we respond. Always. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the actions of others were outside his command, yet his own mind and choices were his alone to govern. Epictetus, born into slavery and crippled for life, could have spent his days lamenting what was taken from him. Instead, he turned his focus entirely to what remained within his control: his thoughts, his judgments, his actions. He refused to hand over responsibility for his life to anyone or anything outside himself. This is the standard the new self must adopt. Nothing and no one has the power to dictate who you become except you. Taking absolute responsibility means eliminating the language of excuses from your inner vocabulary. I can't because becomes I haven't yet because I chose not to. This is not about blaming yourself for every misfortune, but about owning your response to it. The old self waits for conditions to be perfect before acting. The new self acts in imperfect conditions because it knows there will never be another kind. This mental shift is the moment the chains begin to break. You stop asking, "Who will help me?" and start declaring, "What will I do next?" This responsibility is not heavy in the way people imagine. It does not crush you, it frees you. When you take full ownership of your life, you no longer wait for permission or rescue. You no longer measure your potential by the behavior of others. If someone wrongs you, you deal with it. If a plan fails, you adjust it. If you fall short, you learn and try again. You no longer outsource your fate to luck or circumstance. You become the one constant in a world of variables. The old self thrives on the comfort of blame. It likes to think that someone else's failure or some external barrier justifies its stagnation. This is the language of victims, not in the moral sense, but in the psychological sense. A victim mind is one that believes its destiny is decided by forces outside itself. A Stoic mind rejects this. It accepts that the external world can be harsh, but it insists that the internal world belongs entirely to you. And if that is true, then your life is shaped not by what happens, but by what you choose to do about it. In solitude, this principle becomes especially sharp. When you rebuild yourself alone, there is no one else to take the blame, no one else to hand responsibility to. You are confronted with the full reality of your choices. If you waste a day, it is your choice. If you take a step forward, it is also your choice. This can be intimidating at first because it strips away the safety net of excuses. But over time, it becomes empowering because you see that every improvement you make is your own creation. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. This principle demands that you stop waiting for the right moment, the right resources, the right approval. All of it is an illusion. Life will not pause to align itself with your readiness. The Stoics would tell you that the right moment to act is always now, because now is the only moment that truly exists. Waiting is another way the old self hides from responsibility. It disguises inaction as patience, passivity as strategy. The new self sees through this and acts with what is available, where it stands, in the condition it finds itself. Taking absolute responsibility also means owning your inner state. You cannot control every feeling that arises, but you can control whether you feed it or let it pass. You cannot control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you dwell on. This is the heart of Stoic discipline, to rule over the only territory that truly belongs to you, your own mind. When you master this inner territory, the chaos of the outside world loses its ability to dictate your peace. There is a deep sense of dignity that comes with living this way. You no longer see yourself as the product of what has been done to you, but as the architect of what you will do next. Even in loss, you stand straighter, because you know you have not lost your ability to act. Even in pain, you find a quiet pride in enduring well. The old self would crumble under such pressure, seeing misfortune as a reason to stop. The new self endures, adapts, and moves forward. This is not arrogance. It is the sober recognition of your own power to choose. When you live by this principle, you inevitably separate yourself from much of the world's mindset. You stop engaging in the endless exchange of blame that dominates most conversations. You no longer waste energy debating whose fault it is that something went wrong. Instead, you ask, what can I do about it now? This focus on solutions over blame transforms not just your inner life, but your relationships, because people begin to see you as a source of stability in a world addicted to complaining. Absolute responsibility is the foundation upon which all other Stoic principles rest. Without it, acceptance of reality becomes passive resignation instead of active engagement. Without it, voluntary discomfort becomes meaningless self-punishment instead of intentional growth. Without it, detachment from opinion is just withdrawal instead of principled independence. It is this principle that takes the abstract beauty of Stoic wisdom and turns it into a living practice. The final transformation is this. When you destroy the old self and take full responsibility for your life, you are no longer at the mercy of fate, even though fate still moves as it will. You understand that you may not be able to control the wind, but you will always control the sail, and that is enough. From this place of strength, you meet life head-on, knowing that whatever comes, you will face it not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator of your own path. This is where the rebuilding truly begins, and once you begin here, you can rebuild into someone unshakable. You have walked through the 7 principles, each one a blade that cuts away the layers of the old self. You have faced acceptance without complaint, embraced voluntary discomfort, detached from the opinions of others, conquered desire, trained yourself to see obstacles as teachers, disciplined your emotions, and taken absolute responsibility for your life. Each step has been a battle, not against the world, but against the part of yourself that resists growth, that clings to comfort, that fears change. Now, standing here at the end of this journey, you may feel a strange mixture of pride and uncertainty. Pride, because you have glimpsed the strength you are capable of. Uncertainty, because the work is not done. The truth is, the work will never be done. Stoic transformation is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong discipline. The old self will always try to return. It will whisper to you on tired mornings when discipline feels heavy. It will tempt you on lonely nights when the warmth of easy pleasure seems more inviting than the cold clarity of purpose. It will wait for you in moments of frustration, offering you the comfort of excuses. But now you know its voice. You can recognize its tone, and recognition is the first defense. The new self you are building is not made of fragile promises or fleeting motivation. It is forged from repeated action, from the quiet choice made again and again to live according to principles rather than impulses. Every time you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, you drive another nail into the coffin of the old self. There is a quiet power in realizing that your life belongs to you, not in theory, but in practice. The world will always have opinions. Fate will always bring storms. People will always change, sometimes leaving you, sometimes betraying you. None of this determines who you are unless you hand over that power. You have learned to keep it. That is the heart of Stoic freedom, to remain your own master, no matter the conditions outside. And once you taste that freedom, dependence on anything outside yourself feels like a kind of imprisonment you will never willingly return to. You may be tempted to measure your transformation by external markers, income, status, recognition. But remember that the Stoics measured it differently. They asked, are you calmer than you were before? Are you less disturbed by what is outside your control? Do you recover faster from setbacks? Are you more consistent in your principles? These are the metrics of the new self. The world may never see these changes clearly, but you will feel them. You will notice how rarely you are pulled into unnecessary arguments, how little you crave approval, how quickly you move from frustration to action. And in these small, steady shifts, you will know you are becoming someone unshakable. Living this way will separate you from the majority. Most people are carried along by the current of life without questioning where it is taking them. They live reactively, driven by the moods of the day and the pressures of the crowd. They see discomfort as something to be avoided at all costs, and they seek meaning only in things that can be taken away: money, praise, possessions. They do not see that they are building their lives on sand. You have chosen a different foundation: stone, not sand; principles, not impulses. And while this path can be lonely, it is the loneliness of the high ground, quiet, but filled with a view that makes the climb worthwhile. As you continue forward, you will face moments that test every principle you've learned here. Acceptance will be tested when life strikes you without warning. Voluntary discomfort will be tested when comfort whispers to you to take it easy just this once. Detachment from opinions will be tested when someone close to you misunderstands or disapproves of your choices. Mastery over desire will be tested when something glittering and new appears within your reach. Your ability to see obstacles as teachers will be tested when failure feels like humiliation instead of instruction. Emotional discipline will be tested when anger, fear, or grief comes like a storm. And your commitment to absolute responsibility will be tested in the moments you are most tempted to blame. These tests are not interruptions. They are the training itself. Each one is a chance to prove, not to anyone else, but to yourself, that you are not who you were. The path of transformation is not about becoming invincible in the sense of never being hurt. The Stoics knew pain would come. They knew loss, failure, and betrayal were part of the human condition. Their invincibility came from the knowledge that while these things could touch them, they could not break them. And this is the gift you carry forward now. Not the promise of an easy life, but the skill to live well no matter how hard life becomes. You will not always succeed. There will be days when the old self wins. Days when you lose patience, give in to comfort, let the opinions of others shape your choices, or allow desire to drag you into weakness. But the difference now is that you will notice. You will see what happened, correct your course, and move forward without the poison of self-pity. The old self would take one failure as proof that transformation was impossible. The new self knows that transformation is forged through 1,000 recoveries. Remember that solitude, while a powerful forge for the new self, is not meant to isolate you from the world forever. It is meant to strengthen you so that when you walk back into the noise, you remain steady. The goal is not to hide from life, but to meet it as someone unshaken, someone who can stand in the marketplace of opinions and desires without being bought or sold. Alone, you have built the foundation. In the world, you will test its strength. In the end, destroying the old you is not an act of violence against yourself, but an act of loyalty to the best within you. You are not killing who you are clearing away what you are not. The old self is not your enemy. It is simply the version of you that did not know better, that lacked the tools to live with strength and clarity. Now you know. Now you have the tools. And knowing, you cannot pretend otherwise. The responsibility is yours. So as you leave this chapter of your life and step into the next, carry these principles not as distant ideals, but as living habits. Review them daily. Apply them in small ways before the big tests arrive. Accept reality without complaint. Seek discomfort to build strength. Free yourself from the tyranny of opinion. Master desire before it masters you. See obstacles as teachers. Rule your emotions with reason. And take absolute responsibility for everything within your control. Do this, and you will not need to announce your transformation. It will be seen in the steadiness of your walk, in the clarity of your eyes, and in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can face whatever comes. The old you was built by accident, by habit, by fear, by imitation. The new you will be built by design. You are the architect now. The blueprint is in your hands. And though the work will take the rest of your life, it is the only work worth doing. Stand up, take the first step, and do not look back. The person you are leaving behind will not follow you here.